Come on.
Do I sound like I'm joking? Do I sound like I'm playing? When you look into my eyes, you understand what I'm saying? Let me say it to you slowly, and it may sound scandalous. I don't think that you can handle this.
Once again, we are on. He is the great Mike Steph. I am the Mojo King, and this is Hidden Gems Football, Week 14, brought to you by the 19 Media Group. Mike Steph, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Fresh off a holiday weekend, Thanksgiving weekend. I hope each and every one of y'all had a great weekend. Yeah, it was pretty excited. Pretty exciting week of football. So, no complaints over here. I'm not stuffed. Tell you the truth, the funny thing is, I think I actually lost 2 pounds over the weekend. Steady diet of pancakes.
Pancakes, I want that diet. All right.
Yeah, I had pancakes on Saturday night and had pancakes last night with turkey sausages. Don't ask why.
That's the move. I tried a chocolate milk diet once. It ended kind of like you would expect it would. All right, Mike Steph, can you bring us Mike Steph's one big thing?
Well, my one big thing was supposed to be my one big thing last week before we had the breaking news of Matt Eberflus being let go by the Chicago Bears. Also, my one big thing is going to be concerning the Jets because, unfortunately, I had an unfortunate snafu when I tried to get an impromptu edition of my Salty Thoughts to Mike Steph, so I'm bringing it over here. And my one big thing centers around Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is washed, like officially washed, cooked, done. D-O-N-E, done. I'm full of Jets fandom. I'm a Jet fanatic. I'm full of piss and vigor, or piss and vinegar, whatever you want to call it. But it just gets worse and worse and worse every week. And we still have 5 more games to play. Why? I know there's a lot of things wrong with this team, but I'm going to narrow it down to one guy, to one glass-jaw individual that should go back into the darkness and never, ever come back out into the light again. So here's my list of grievances for the beginning of Jets Festivus. Reason number 1. The reason why we got him was to help close or pull out games in the waning moments. Do you know that this year he is 0-5 when he has the ball within one score to either tie or win the game? He refuses to take blame for anything. And this is Festivus reason number 2. When he's asked of his performance, of what he could do better to get his team to win more, he coyly said, well, there are 11 players on the field. And yes, I could do things better, but once again, there are 11 players on the field. I'm only one of those 11 players. Dude, didn't Zach Wilson say pretty much the same thing a couple years ago? And he promptly got benched after that heartbreaking loss to New England. So, yeah, I know there's a discrepancy between Zach Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, but if you want to look at record and the old saying that Parcells, you are who your record says you are, the Jets are 3-9 with Aaron Rodgers. Last year, they was at least 4-7 with Zach Wilson. Just saying. Now, another part is he hasn't thrown for over 200 yards in the last 3 games, which you could be like, well, no, because they're a running team. No, they're not, because he's thrown an average of 34 attempts per game in those last 3 games. 2 of those last 3 games, he has a under 5-yard pass per attempt average. Multiple opposing players are saying that he's afraid to get hit. The latest being one Leonard Williams of the Seattle Seahawks, former New York Jet, who had a pick 6. Yeah, I said it right. A defensive end that weighs over 300 pounds returned a pick 6 for a touchdown. That's what a pick 6 is. For over 85, 90 yards. Coincidentally, 2 times this year, a pick late in the first half has led to a scoreless second half. A game-changing event that was at the hands of none other than Aaron Rodgers. I remember a couple of Sunday nights ago. We was up 15-6 driving to score. And he got picked with under 2 minutes to go in the half, and the game was effectively flipped. Same thing happened this past Sunday. this past Sunday, Festivus reason number 5, or the umpteenth reason. He missed a wide open Garrett Wilson for a touchdown, and all the histrionics that he had was uncalled for. He's waving his arms. He's looking toward the sideline. He's shaking his head vigorously. And then he promptly followed that up with the aforementioned pick 6 to a defensive lineman who dropped out in the zone blitz. I wish the players would give him the same treatment. I wish they would go and say, well, there are 11 guys on the field, and one of them is a statue behind the center position that looks dramatically different than he did 10 years ago. His face is not as full. His teeth are not as straight. Yeah, and I'm one to talk, but neither here nor there. His eyes are kind of bulging. Something doesn't look right. And being the fact we're on a family-friendly platform, I will refrain what I'm referring to. But my partner, the Mojo King, knows exactly what I'm referring to. Yes, he does. He's shaking his head vigorously, just like Aaron Rodgers shakes something else vigorously. But I digress. Maybe he could just say, sometimes it's my fault. Multiple times it was his fault. A lot of times it was his fault only. And the details aren't there in some spots, but the details are also glaring that Aaron Rodgers just needs to be put out the pasture. And that, my friends, is Mike Steph's one big thing. Yeah.
Rest of season, would you still want him to start, or you want Tyrod Taylor?
I personally would want Tyrod Taylor, but being the fact that this is a rudderless team, a team that has no leadership, a team that has a coach in name only, and everything remaining still revolves around Aaron Rodgers, that's not going to happen.
Yo, what's up? I'm Desmond, and I'm the host of Hip to the Games, a podcast from 19 Media Group, where the brilliance of basketball and hip-hop's past and present is genuinely appreciated. Join me every other Friday as we celebrate some of the greatest artists, albums, moments, songs, bars, punchlines, NBA teams, players, just anything and everything to do with the game of rap and the game of basketball. See, if you like basketball and hip-hop, that means you're hip to the games. But no matter where you fall on that spectrum, I encourage you to join the fun every other Friday on your favorite podcast platform, courtesy of the great 19 Media Group.
All right, let's move on to Thursday night football. The 9-3 Green Bay Packers are heading to Detroit to face the 11-1 Lions. The projected total here is 51.5 points, and the Lions are 3.5-point favorites. That means Vegas is telling us that they predict that the Packers will score 24 and the Lions will score 27.5. As far as injuries, for the Packers, Romeo Doubs was out last week due to a concussion. Meanwhile, Josh Jacobs was limited in practice with the calf injury. I think that was just cautionary. I'm sure he will return. On defense, they have some issues as linebackers as a whole. And then on Detroit, their offense is pretty much healthy and their defense is pretty much beat up. Mike Steph, what do you think about this game? Who you got?
Well, I'm going to start with the Packers first. The Packers have won 4 of the last 5 games, with that one loss coming to these same Detroit Lions, 24-14, a couple weeks ago at Lambeau Field. Back-to-back blowouts have them riding high. For them to even have a sniff of the division crown, they have to win this game to bring Detroit back to the pack, so to speak. Pardon the pun, back to the pack. See, I got it. 9-3 is the record of the Green Bay Packers, and yet they're stuck in 3rd place. That's a strange place to be when you've been playing as well as they have. They're 3rd place in their division, and they have the 2nd wild card. Jordan Love has been banged up since the beginning of the season, but since their bye week, he's been a much different quarterback from the one who threw 10 interceptions in the first 7 games. His touchdown to interception ratio during this 3-game winning streak is 5-1. His completion percentage has gone up from 61% to 69%. And his average passer rating has gone up from 85.5 to 116.5. Now, going over to the Detroit Lions, as my brothers expertly said, was they have a slew of injuries, especially on the defensive side. One interesting development was the signing of Jamal Adams. Yes, safety Jamal Adams. Yes, former Jet Jamal Adams. Adams made his first appearance at Lions practice this past Monday wearing the number 25, and he was observed participating in position drills with the linebackers during the portion of the practice that was open to the media. He does possess the physicality to slide down into the front seven and compete at a linebacker position, which I think, tell you the truth, would probably be the best way to utilize his unique skill set. With all that being said, short week, Lions 11-1, riding high on 9-game winning streak. Detroit scored 24 points in the misty rain out in Green Bay a couple weeks ago. And tell you the truth, dominated that game. Even though it was 24-14, they dominated that game. So that 51.5 over under. I tend to think you're going over because Green Bay should be able to score some points in this defense. And Detroit is going to bring the ruckus. Bring the ruckus. Shout out to Desmond Powell. So I'll go over with the 51.5. Now, something's telling me this will be a nail biter. So Green Bay plus the 3.5 and the over under, I'm going over.
When it comes to the Packers, the one thing that I find interesting about them, they've won 3 straight and they've won 7 of their last 8. Like you mentioned, their loss was to Detroit. Their only other losses this season have been Eagles and Vikings. So I think my issue here is that when they faced true definitive playoff teams, that's when they've struggled. They looked great against Miami. Even though the score got a little bit closer at the second half, they whooped them. It wasn't even a consideration. And they basically did the same thing to the 49ers too. But if you were going to make defenses for those teams, the 49ers look like they're washed anyway, and they look like a group of Aaron Rodgers. I'm sorry. And then
Listen, I have no problem with you saying that.
And then I'm kidding. And then Miami, as much as I hate to admit that this trend is a reality, them playing in the cold, I don't know. A football team that can't play in the cold, I don't understand it, but it is what it is. Yeah, you said it.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. The Packers are clearly a good team. I don't know if they're elite. And Detroit's elite. What's odd is that Philadelphia is playing so well that the pundits out there seem to be pushing down Detroit a little bit, as now Philadelphia is the clear best team in NFC. And how is that proven? But back to this game. So my thing is, like I said, I'm questioning the Packers. I think the Lions are a little bit, oddly enough, at 11-1, a little bit underrated. So I am going with Detroit. I have to admit, though, that 3.5 is bothering me because it's very easily Detroit can win by a field goal, and then I'll be kicking myself for giving that money away. But I feel relatively confident in Detroit on that side. As far as the over-under, I feel less confident. Basically, I agree with what you said. It should be, both teams should be able to score on offense. So it should be an over, but 51.5 is high. High. Both of them have to score. I'd probably lean over. I would never bet that, but I think I honestly would bet on the Lions side, though.
They've put up 40, 50 spots at home already. Not saying they would do that against the Packers, but they put up 24 in the rain on the road against the Packers. Do you not think they could put up 30? Because their defense is compromised, that'll allow the Packers, as long as they don't get out to that sluggish start that they did in the first game, that should allow them to put points on the board too. And Josh Jacobs is starting to catch a groove. I could see them putting points up. So that 51.5, yeah, it's kind of high. But one thing about the Detroit Lions, they aim high. They aim high for the sky. So
Detroit does not know how to put the brakes on. They will keep going.
This is a 19 Media Group presentation.
Head coach Dan Campbell. You couldn't tell that was Dan Campbell. Sometimes these things you just chalk it up. Some things happen, some things don't. As long as we bite their kneecaps, we good. Shoot, you're used to listening to things on 1.5 speed. I could talk at 1.5 speed. I'll just minimize the chatter in between.
I listen to your podcast on double speed.
Let me find out you got me sound like Alvin and the Chipmunks. That's crazy. So that means when you talk to me, you're like, oh, why is his voice so deep?
Why are you talking so slow?